welcome to this week's edition of Easy Like a Sunday Story. This week's story is called Hope, and I hope that you enjoy it. Business was going well at April's Tools, and April was proud of what she'd achieved. Not bad for a girl from Dagenham with only 2 GCSEs to rub together. She'd only ever been good at and interested in singing, and ignored the advice of her teachers who could frustratingly see her potential to make sure she had a good education and backup career. "I won't need it, miss," she confidently assured her English teacher. "I've known what I wanted to do since I was 4. I wanted to be a singer and I'm not going to change my mind." "But what if you don't make it?" Miss Prince reasoned. "I will." Oh, the boldness of a 15-year-old. "What if you get fat?" "I won't." "Or go out of fashion?" "I won't." "Or get polyps?" "Oh, gross." April didn't actually know what polyps was, but it sounded disgusting. Miss Prince never actually said, "What if you're not good enough?" because she knew that April was. She had the technical skill, the range to rival Elvis, and was pitch perfect. She could sing classical, musical theatre, and could turn her hand to any style of modern music. But it was her unique sound that was special. She could sing any song, no matter how popular or famously performed, but when April sang it, it was like you'd never heard it before. Mariah, Whitney, Shirley Bassey, Adele, songs you mustn't touch, sounded new, fresh and exciting. She probably would have made it if it wasn't for Jem. He was a lead guitarist for an up-and-coming band called Broken Stones. They met at Battle of the Bands weekend in Ali Pali, a festival organised by Radio 1 for artists that were about to break into the mainstream music scene. Broken Stones were one of the headline acts. April was performing in the Spotlight on New Music Hour, and she felt like it could be her big break. Jem had watched her backstage and was instantly besotted. She was wearing a white 80s playsuit with huge, padded, pointed shoulder pads and pearlised white DMs. Her dark hair was in a blunt bob and her thick fringe was pinned back to show a red heart painted over one eye. She sang 2 of her own songs, one about the Mississippi River, she'd fallen in love with it when she'd visited New Orleans, and one about her friend who had ended his life because of bullying. She dedicated it to him, and there wasn't a dry eye to be seen. She brought the house down, well, the field. Jem was mesmerised. He invited her to watch his band backstage and to the party afterwards as his guest. She was nervous but accepted. He was pretty persistent, and it was exciting. There was something about him. He was gorgeous, wavy dark longish hair, piercing blue eyes, olive skin and a chiselled stubbly jaw. But it wasn't his looks. It was something else. He seemed edgy, passionate. He seemed like a rebel, a rule breaker. He was brave, and it was exhilarating and frightening and attractive. Soon they were inseparable, and their relationship was wild and intense. At first, Jem helped April gain more exposure, and her music career was flourishing. Broken Bones were doing well too, and for a few months life was everything she'd ever dreamed of. But as her successes opened up new opportunities, ones that Jem hadn't set up, he became possessive and jealous. Arguments turned into fights, and then the fights got worse and much more one-sided. April regularly had bruises and no sleep, and was finding it difficult to perform and write. Soon it became easier to not be as good. When she wasn't doing so well, he didn't get as angry. One day it got really bad. She ended up in hospital. She knew she had to get away, and the only way to do it was to leave that world. Better to try and start a new life than to do the one she already had without him in it. April found it hard to trust anyone again, and so never got into another serious relationship. She had flings, but always chose the safe options. She was scared that if there was passion and chemistry, it would end in disaster. She vowed never to not be in control again. When she got her first flat, she soon discovered that she had an impressive flair for DIY. Everything had needed doing, and she did it herself, hand-making virtually everything, much due to necessity from lack of funds, but she loved it. She started doing odd jobs for friends, and each project that she took on taught her something new, a skill that she had for her tool belt that she'd take to the next challenge. She could tackle most jobs, she avoided plumbing and gas, but she adored working with wood. She loved that it grew from nature and how the material had its own uniqueness and beauty. And much like her music, she enjoyed creating pieces that were original, unexpected and different. After a while and really good feedback, she came up with the name April's Tools and designed a logo. The T and the L of tools were spanners, and the S was a tape measure, and the O's were bolts. It was cute. She set up a social media account and her business was born. Customers shared photos of her work with fantastic reviews. But the side of things that she hadn't expected was how popular she became because she was a woman. Sometimes women didn't feel comfortable inviting men into their homes if they lived alone. She was having a tea break at a female client's house one day and they got onto the subject. Angie opened up about her reasons for booking April. She had escaped an abusive marriage and her children had had to stay in a safe house until her husband was put into prison. April shared her story too, and she realised that she hadn't ever really talked about it honestly. Very few people knew what had happened to her, and those that did, nobody knew the full extent of it. She'd never spoken about it because she was too ashamed. It was as if she had done something wrong, falling in love with a man like that. She couldn't explain why she hadn't left sooner or gave him all those chances. She couldn't explain that she loved him so much and was desperate to believe his promises that it would never happen again. That she cared for him and could see his turmoil despite what he had done to her. And that it wasn't like that all the time. The good bits had been the best times of her life. But if you've never been in that situation, you wouldn't understand. And so she felt weak and stupid and small. She'd been able to open up to Angie because she'd shared too, and she could empathise. She knew what it was like. They'd had a lot of similar feelings and thoughts. April felt such a relief. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off of her shoulders and she could stand up straight again. They'd both said that they wished they had someone to talk to at the time that they were going through the same thing. They might have found it easier to leave. Sharing her story was so empowering. She wanted to find a way to reach other women like her, to help them build trust, heal their wounds and not blame themselves for what had happened to them. With the help of Angie, April set up a group called Hope and organised a meeting in the local community centre. They had no idea if anyone would attend, but they put it out there and said that they would be there if anyone wanted a chat. 9 women attended that first one, and numbers increased each week. There were women like April and Angie who had escaped their situations, but many who were still in it and afraid and unsure what to do. There were women who were scared to be there and who had lied about where they were. They'd tell their partners it was a household group, and each week they'd have handouts to take home, such as recipes or cleaning tips or activities to do with the kids so that they could prove what they'd talked about if they were quizzed. But April felt like they needed to do more. She wanted to be able to offer more practical solutions, not just moral support alone. But for this, they needed money. They set Hope up as a community interest company and began applying for funding. It was time to put a post on the social media for her business. She'd always tried to be the authentic voice behind her brand, and her customer relationships had always been brilliant because of it. Now it was time to share the whole picture. She announced that her business was there to support victims of domestic violence and that a percentage of her profits would go to the funding of the group. Her other idea was to set up a concert to raise funds and awareness. Many of the people that she'd known back in her singing days had gone on to have successful music careers, and some were quite well known. The confidence that Hope had given her and the freedom that lifting her burden made her feel it felt like now was the time to revisit old ground. She began reaching out, and within 2 days had managed to get a full lineup of acts. She'd explained that she couldn't pay, but that it was for a good cause. In fact, it was her own CIC. She was sure that most people would have put 2 and 2 together, knowing her relationship with Jem had been volatile and her exit from the music sudden and unexplained. It had been strange but nice to catch up with her old friends and acquaintances over the phone, but it brought a pang of regret, of the life that she left, doing the thing that she loved. How different things could have been. Of course, nobody questioned the connection of her disappearing and splitting from Jem with the nature of the cause. Even the one person who she thought might. Becca was a music producer that she'd met when she'd been offered the chance to record an EP. He suspected April wasn't as happy as she let on at the time and took a disliking to Jem. They got on well and she liked him. He'd been really encouraging and helpful with her music, and she knew that he had a candle for her. Jem had accused her of having an affair with him. All hell broke loose and the EP never got finished. April's showers. I never thought I'd see the day. It's great to hear from you. April Showers was his nickname for her because her music was so moving it often brought people to tears. They chatted for ages and he loved everything she was telling him about her business and the CIC and the fundraiser gig. He said he'd love to be a part of it. It was getting big and she needed technical and artistic help. She had never organised anything like this before. I can do better than that, he said. You're missing a trick here, if you don't mind me saying. You need to be singing, and you need to be telling everyone why this is important through the power of song. It had entered her head that she might get to set foot on the stage, but she thought maybe she could duet with one of the acts or something, or do a warm-up number. She didn't think anyone would be interested in her anymore, so she certainly wasn't considering belting out a new song as part of the main event. What better way to get your message across? Singing is how you communicate, how you make people stand up and listen. Have you forgotten how good you are, April? Was, she said as a knee-jerk reaction. You don't lose a talent like that. You can try and bury it with your past and your secrets, but it won't disintegrate. It's made of stronger stuff. She went silent while she thought about it. We can work together on it if you like. We did some great stuff together back then. But you have to bring the words. Words for all those people that you've helped to speak out. April felt sick. She never remembered her nerves being this bad before, but then she had less fear all those years ago. But, overridingly, she felt alive. For the first time in years, she had allowed herself to feel passion and be vulnerable and to care about something so much that it made you take risks. This cause, the message, this event meant so much to her, and she'd had to fight and pull strings and work harder than she'd ever worked to make it happen. She was on the edge of the stage watching her old friends Delta and the Pistons wow the crowd, and she felt immensely proud that her idea had come to life. Everyone who'd helped pull it together had given so much, mostly for free, and the gig had been a sellout with many donating extra on top of their ticket price. They are killing it tonight. She hadn't realised Becca was coming up behind her and he made her jump. He put his hand on her shoulder to steady her. Sorry, he said. No, it's me, I'm just nervy. How am I supposed to follow that? They're phenomenal. So are you, Becca said. You always were, but this new song is a whole new league. You don't even need to try. The song will do it for you. She knew he was right. The song was called Invincible. It was about the strength of those women, not their weakness, their ability to survive. April had referenced her experience in the lyrics, but also, with permission from the people in the group, had taken some of their words, so it was representing them all. She stepped out onto the stage. No introduction. Just the spotlight and the darkness of the crowd. She couldn't see them, but she could feel them. As she started to sing, there was an eruption of applause and sounds of appreciation. It was the reaction you might expect from the crowd recognising their favourite song, except nobody had heard this before. The sound of the first line, her unique voice and the words, had united the audience instantly. I am me, I am brave, I'm alive. There was a sea of lights where the crowd held up their torches on their mobile phones and waved them like shooting stars in the night sky. As the song ended, there was a momentary pause. A second of silence, as though everyone had just been brought back down to earth, and it took them a while to realise what had just happened and where they were. Then the cheers came, and it seemed like they might never stop. There were whoops and screams and a rumble of vibration that could be felt in the tummies of everyone in the building. Then came the chants. April wasn't sure where it started, but it spread across the crowd like a thatch catching fire. I am me. I am me. I am me. April tried to speak into the mic, but the lump in her throat stopped her. It was overwhelming. She took a deep breath and tried again. I have so much to be grateful for and so many thank yous to make. Everyone that's given their time and talents to us this evening. Everyone that's bought a ticket and joined us here. And to every person who's been affected by domestic abuse. Everyone whose home is not their sanctuary. We want to give you something. Hope. Hope that you can overcome this. Hope that you can be happy. Hope that you can be free. With hope, your spirit is invincible. April felt invincible in that moment. She felt like she could do anything she wanted, and what she wanted to do was to follow through on her promise. When she got home that evening, she poured herself a glass of fizz and raised it to all the people that had helped make that happen. She took a sip as her phone rang. It was Becca. April shower strikes again, but this time there's a risk of flooding. April laughed. She was tired and delirious from the buzz of the evening's events. It's gone viral. We need to release it as a single and you can use the proceeds for Hope, Becca said as if it was the simplest thing in the world, a no-brainer. What? She had no idea. She went online and it was everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever that was, YouTube. It was trending under the hashtag #IamMe. I don't know, Beck, Rachel said doubtfully. I never wanted to make this about me. I don't want it to feel like I set all this up to relive the dream that I walked away from all those years ago. But this is about you, April. You and thousands of others who have had their dreams ruined. Of course, first and foremost, it's about the cause, but it's okay for you to get joy from it too. It doesn't always have to be hard. Stop punishing yourself. Look, it's up to you, but if you want to go for it and record the single, I'm with you every step of the way. She'd got so used to things being a struggle, to fighting, she'd forgotten that she was allowed to be happy. It felt strange to have someone encouraging her and rooting for her success. The song would be wonderful for Hope, and there was room in there for it to fulfill part of her personal dream too. Invincible was a huge success and raised awareness and funds exceeding her wildest expectations. Hope grew in reputation and size. They set up tools to help people safely find an exit plan from their difficult lives and offered coaching, counselling and practical assistance such as funds, food and shelter. It remained a haven for people to meet and talk about their experiences, whether they were in the middle of them or painful memories. They also helped a lot of men who were victims of domestic violence and set up an arm of the operation specifically to help them talk and deal with the additional stigmas. April's tools kept going, but she outsourced most of the work now, although she still liked to make things with wood when she could. Her latest project had taken some time. As the cloth was lifted, there was an applause from the intimate crowd at the top of the hill at Ali Pali. April had built a beautiful oak bench with the words Hope carved into its back. There was a brass plaque with a phone number and email address on for anyone who needed help. It was to be the first of these benches across London, and while the others would be reproductions, April had wanted to make this with her own hands and give it as her gift. It's perfect, Becca whispered to her. They'd become close and she was happy that he liked it. April hadn't planned to give a speech. She wanted it to be a small and understated affair. To her surprise, Angie stood up. I wanted to take a moment to say a few words. Angie had always shied away from any public speaking, so this was most unexpected. I'm not very good at this sort of thing, so I'll keep it brief. But I just thought it was time to say thank you. Thank you to the woman who has tirelessly worked to help others, ever since the day we first shared our stories over a cup of tea in my kitchen. She's been inspiring and strong, selfless and brave, and has kept positive throughout this whole journey. And it hasn't been easy, but she smiled when she wanted to scream, and she reminded us all that we are here, we are brave, and we're alive. I think it's fitting that this bench, carved by her hand, is a symbol of the thing that she has done all along. Most importantly, April has given us hope. The end.